Hi everyone, and welcome back to a Nurturing Parenting series. My name is Tiba. I am a substance abuse prevention specialist here at LHC, and today we'll be going over effective and early warning signs of substance abuse. So the goals for this session is we're going to learn a bit more about stats on drug abuse, what are prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs, what's the difference, how can we tell the difference, what can you do to keep your children safe from drug poisoning, safe ways to store medication, why some people may abuse substances, and what are the early warning signs for substance abuse. So let's look over some stats. Over a 10-year period, 2.5 million children in the US under 6 years old were poisoned by unintentional ingestion of medication, personal care products, and/or vitamins. More than 67,000 children are treated in the US emergency departments for medication poisoning. 12,390 of these children required hospitalization, so they weren't able to just go home straight off. So let's look at the difference between prescription drug versus over-the-counter drugs. Prescription drugs are as the name says, prescribed to you, medication that legally requires a doctor prescription to be dispensed. These usually include opioids, suppressants, and stimulants. Over-the-counter drugs, however, are drugs that are medicines sold directly to a consumer without a prescription from a doctor. You can find this basically anywhere. You could even find it at a gas station, Walgreens, CVS. Both can be addicting if misused or excessively used. So how can we store medication safely? When we store medications and vitamins, we want to make sure that we're storing them high and out of sight, just so our children don't get the idea that they can get to them or maybe eat them. A lot of the times medication, especially for children, is very bright, colorful, and children might think they're candy. So even if you take medication daily or give them to your child more than once a day, put medication always when you're done giving it to them or taking it, up and away after every use. Do not leave medication on a counter or table between doses. So what can we do to keep our children more safe when there is medication in the home? And also, how do we keep them from maybe taking it and having medication poisoning? First, like we said, we're going to store them high and safe, up and away, out of sight after every single use, which can be a little bit annoying. You can think, okay, let me just put it here on the counter or on the table by me, and that can cause a lot of consequences without intentional. Giving medication safely by reading the medication labels and following the dosing instructions. Sometimes you may think, okay, let me just give them 3 tablets or just take as much as you need, and that might not be what's best for them. So make sure that you're reading the labels and taking care of your child. Speaking to the kids about drug poisoning and what that means. Sometimes we just tell them don't take this certain type of drug, or I don't know if you guys remember, sometimes when clothing has packages and it says poisonous, that's the most we kind of tell our children about with medication. However, something that's an oral medication, if taken incorrectly, can also poison them. So it's just really important to remember we have dosing instructions on the medication for a reason. So what can we do to continue to keep our children safe? Getting rid of expired or unused medications safely. We really need to make sure that we're keeping tracks of the medication, making sure that we don't have expired medication or that we're taking expired medication. If we have unused medication, that we get rid of it, just so we don't have a counter full of medications or we're always confused on what to take and if it's safe to take. Store medications in safe places, talking to family and friends about important safety information as well. So why do people do, we all have heard about people who take drugs incorrectly or misuse them. Why do they do that? We're trying to put a line of empathy and understanding with prevention. So of course, people have reasons behind what they do, and the best that we can do is kind of inform them and try to help them out with what could happen and the consequences of taking drugs. So there are many different reasons, including the following. Sometimes people may be under a lot of pressure and they're not able to cope with stressful events anymore. They like the feeling. They may be very bored and unhappy. They might want to fit in with their friends, peer pressure. Sometimes people just think it's an experiment and they're like, okay, let me take it just once or twice. Nothing will happen, but it only takes one time to get addicted most of the time. Many people think that using drugs relaxes them, but eventually they will become the cause of their problems. So with this in mind, let's say you are having a hard time sleeping, and instead of maybe looking into teas or talking to your doctor, you're just taking sleeping medication and you're taking it in a way that's very harmful to you. You're misusing it and you're thinking, okay, but I'm sleeping. But eventually you're not going to be able to sleep unless you take that medication. And something that might have been a little problem or something that could have been fixed naturally has now become a medication addiction. So what is addiction? Addiction is when a person keeps using drugs and then the brain will adapt and reduce the amount of dopamine release. This means tolerance, basically. The first time you use a drug, you get that high feeling. And then the more you continue to use that drug, the more your brain is just kind of going to change and adapt to fit that drug. And you're going to continue to look for that feeling of the first feeling you got when you took that drug, and you won't be able to just because your brain has already changed and adapted, and it's reducing the amount of dopamine. And that change and adapting it with your brain is called building a higher tolerance. This means the person needs to take more drugs in order to produce the same high known as tolerance. According to NIDA, addiction is a chronic disease characterized by drug seeking and use that's compulsive or difficult to control despite harmful consequences. So what does happen to your brain when you use drugs? So first, most drugs affects the brain reward circuit. The circuit involves the neurotransmitter dopamine being released in the brain, which makes the person feel good and reinforces the action that causes it. So the drug is going directly to the brain, and it's going to the circuit that has your neurotransmitter dopamine that releases the feeling of feeling good. Normally, we get a release of dopamine from doing things such as eating and spending time with people we care about. This can be anything that you do to kind of feel good. Since this process occurs when people use drugs, the circuit leads to more drug use. So it's not just that the drug is bad for you in all of your body, it's also bad in your brain because it's affecting the brain chemistry. So what are some effective and warning signs of substance abuse? We're going to look in changes in appearance to begin with. This can look like a lack of interest in their appearance, when usually someone might be really put together and constantly taking care of themselves. All of a sudden, they don't seem like they're showering or taking care of themselves. They don't care what they're putting on. And it's not usually in their character. And it's like, it could be a big change. It could be a small change. Poor hygiene. An example of that is bad breath, not brushing your teeth, not taking care of your skin. They can have unusual markings on their arms or legs, so bruises that look weird. Their clothes or breath reek of smoke. Smoke, as we know, especially when we smoke cigarettes or even hookah or vaping, it leaves behind a smell that's very difficult to get rid of, and you can usually tell when someone is a smoker straight off. Smell of alcohol on their breath. This is kind of self-explanatory. Alcohol literally seeps into all of your body and it gives off that smell just like cigarettes. Bloodshot eyes and dark circles under their eyes. So with this, it's kind of something maybe you usually saw your friend being put together and they don't smell, and all of a sudden they smell and they have markings or trail marks on their arms or legs, and you can just kind of tell immediately with the changes of appearance sometimes with drug use. We know the consequences of drug use lead to health issues, short-term and long-term, so immediately and immediately after. Some health issues include insomnia, which is not being able to sleep, nosebleeds, sudden weight loss or sudden weight gain, excessive sweating, dilated pupils, unexplained bruises or sores, extreme exhaustion, sleeping a lot or not sleeping at all. Now let's look at the warning signs when it comes to school or work performance. This is someone who usually is on time, they do their work, they get things done, they're doing great. When maybe they're partaking in substance abuse, they now have excessive lateness at school or work, they're skipping school or work, something that kind of mattered to them before doesn't really matter at all anymore. Loss of interest in sports, hobbies, or anything they used to do outside of school or in school. Drop in grades, complaints from teachers, bosses, or coworkers, and this can all lead to failing a class or failing a grade and losing your job if that is what's happening at your job. Let's look at some behavioral changes. Someone who was maybe more coordinated has now become unusually clumsy, stumbling, lack of coordination, poor balance, disappears for long periods of time, excuses don't make sense, their time schedule just doesn't make any sense to you, has periods of sleeplessness or high energy followed by long periods of catch-up sleep. Now we're looking at mood and personality shifts with substance abuse. This can look like feeling hostile, angry, uncooperative, deceitful, or secretive to the people you care and love, less motivated, unable to focus, and hyperactive. They can also seem randomly, unusually elated, and then followed by maybe looking visibly sad or visibly tired. So how can we dispose of medication safely? First, mixed medicines. Do not crush tablets or capsules with something people or pets are unlikely to try to eat, like kitty litter or used coffee grounds. Place the mixture in a container such as a sealed plastic bag. So here we have a couple different medications mixed in mud and then or dirt, and then they just put it in a plastic bag and then they just shake the bag or put it under. You can also throw the container in your household trash. Before throwing out your empty pill bottle or other empty medication packaging, remember to scratch out all the information. Some other ways to safely dispose medication is sometimes and usually we have drop boxes and collection bins just for medication. They will look like this. They say medication drop box or something along those lines. Public take back events, prepaid mailers purchased at some pharmacies or online. Sometimes pharmacies will dispose of medication for you. Police departments usually have public take back events and they usually do have a drop box somewhere on the station. Drug manufacturers prepaid mailers will also let you maybe mail old medication. It really depends. If you do your research or Google, you're most likely to find a drop box or a collection bin. And if let's say you don't, you can always find an event that's happening within the month or the next month that will just let you come by, take all your old medication, no questions asked, and they'll just get rid of it for you. So some more effective and warning signs of substance abuse, including changes in appearances, a lack of interest in their appearance, like we said, bad breath and smoke. This is something that might not seem as normal to you. And like we said, we're just going back to make it a point with you guys. If someone is showing experiences of changes of appearance, changes of mood, maybe it's best to talk to them and best to be able to kind of understand them as well. So that was just a recap of everything we just went through. And here are some mood and personality shifts: less motivated, unable to focus. All of these we just talked about. We want to make sure that we're going over them and recapping on them. If someone has a different mood or personality change, you should be able to talk to them and kind of understand them. So let's look at effective and warning signs of substance abuse. Where can someone hide old medication? At home or in car. Sometimes we have teenagers in our house, or maybe someone who's a bit younger or older, and they're trying to hide medication from their parents. This can include appearance of unusual drug apparatus, including pipes, rolling paper, small medication bottles, eye drops, mutant lighters, makeshift smoking devices like bongs made out of toilet paper rolls and aluminum foil, or hidden stashes of alcohol. And right over here, we have someone who used their binders. They kind of cut out their binders, which is kind of difficult to do, and then they hid all their alcohol behind that. Let's look at where someone could hide medication or drugs in the bedroom. So this can be found in shoes or clothes in closets, drawers and box spring pillows in between mattresses, on the top of bookshelves, vanities, or high shelves. The gap between the bottom drawer and the floor beneath. We're not telling you guys to go and into your child's room and just like go crazy on your child's room, but let's say you saw all the warning signs and how the appearance, mood shifts. Maybe you could talk to them, maybe you could go through the room. If I want to tell you guys that it's an invasion of privacy, but sometimes if your child is having substance abuse issues, it might be best to go through their things. We're not telling you guys to do it all the time, but if you have a high inclination and you're really, really worried about your child, you could find some drugs or medications and a couple different hiding secrets they may have. So how can we look at monitoring teens' media use? With this, we can set rules for use of TV, video games, internet, music, etc. Monitor your child's digital behaviors. Make sure to personally monitor your teen's search history or media profile. Talk to your child about acceptable online behavior, what is appropriate and inappropriate. So what is Dispose X? This stands for Drug Deactivation System. With this one, we can get rid of drugs. We'll go more into this a bit more next week when I show you guys a live tutorial of it. But for just right now, you can use this packet to get rid of drugs, medication. So how can you use a Dispose X? You can open the vial, add warm tap powder until vial is 2/3/4, and then you add the Dispose X powder, shake for 30 seconds. This is with the pills on the bottom, and it takes it into like a kind of mush. So nobody's able to use it, and also deactivates the pills. One more step, whichever method you decide to use for safely disposing your medication, it is important to protect your personal information on these medication bottles, such as name, address, date of birth, name of medication. Other alternatives to Dispose X, of course there are. Like we said earlier, you can use dirt and put it in a plastic bag and just kind of shake it. You can also use coffee grounds or dirt, like we said. Okay, so that was just a video of that, and like I said, next week we'll go more into a depth tutorial of it as well. Thank you guys so much for listening into the English portion of this PowerPoint and session, and I'm gonna go ahead and let Omnia do the Arabic version. See you guys next week.
Thank you Tiba. أهلا وسهلا فيكم. رح نعمل هلا السكشن العربي تبع هذا البرزنتيشن. So اليوم نحن عم نحكي عن العلامات الأولية أو العلامات التحذيرية اللي ممكن ننتبه عليها إذا نحن عم بنشك إنه أولادنا ممكن بيكونوا عم يستخدموا المواد المدمنة. So شو رح ناخد أو شو هي أهداف هالبرزنتيشن لليوم؟ نحن رح نحكي عن إحصائيات اللي بتخص استخدام المواد المدمنة. رح نحكي عن كيف ممكن نخبي الأدوية الموجودة عنا بالبيت بطريقة آمنة وكيف نبعدها عن أولادنا، وكمان رح نحكي عن شو هي العلامات الأولية اللي لازم ننتبه لها والتغيرات اللي ممكن نشوفها عند أي شخص ممكن عم يستخدم المواد المدمنة. هالإحصائيات بتقول على مدى أكثر من 10 سنوات 2.5 مليون طفل بأمريكا عمرهم 6 سنين أو أكبر صار عندهم حالة تسمم بسبب الأدوية أو المنتجات العناية الشخصية اللي ممكن تكون موجودة بالبيت. هالشي نحن ممكن كان نتجنبه لأن كل هالأدوية اللي كانت موجودة عندنا بالبيت إذا خليناها مكان آمن أكتر أو تخلصنا منها إذا نحن ما عم نستخدمها بطريقة آمنة، هالشي ممكن يقلل هالأرقام اللي نحن عم نشوفها اليوم. هلا في نوعين من الأدوية. الأدوية اللي نحن ممكن ناخدها بوصفة الطبيب أو الحكيم. هاي الأدوية هي بتجي مع وصفة الحكيم بتكون أدوية كتير قوية وكتير منهم ممكن يسببوا حالات الإدمان إذا نحن عم ناخدهم بطريقة منا صحيحة. من هالمواد هي المواد الإفيونية، المثبتات والمنشطات. كل هدول الأدوية المختلفة ممكن يسببوا حالات الإدمان. كمان عندنا الأدوية الغير موصوفة من الطبيب. هالأدوية اللي احنا ممكن نفوت على أي صيدلية ونشتريهم. هالأدوية بيكونوا أخفف شوي مثل أدوية الصداع أو الألم أو أي شيء بسيط تاني ممكن احنا ناخده من الصيدلية. هدول الأدوية كمان ممكن يسببوا مشاكل لإلنا أو إذا أي حدا استخدمهم بطريقة غلط. كيف ممكن نخزن الأدوية بطريقة آمنة؟ عمر أولادكم ممكن يخليكم تخبوها الأدوية أو تخزنوها بطريقة أحسن، بس شو ما كان عمرهم نحن لازم نتبع طرق آمنة لنخزن هالأدوية. لأن لو كانوا صغار أو كبار ممكن يستخدمون طريقة غلط، ممكن يأذوا حالهم بهالشي. خبوهم مكان بعيد حتى لو أنتم عم تستخدمون كل يوم. وإذا أولادكم بيستخدموا هالأدوية تأكدوا إنه أنتم موجودين حواليهم لما هن عم بياخدوا هالأدوية المختلفة. كمان ممكن نتخلص منهم بطريقة صحيحة أو صحية، ونحن نحكي عن هدول الطرق بأخير البرزنتيشن، وكمان الأسبوع الجاي ديتيل أكتر منشان تعرفوا الأنواع المختلفة أو الطرق المختلفة اللي ممكن تستخدموها للتخلص من الأدوية بطريقة آمنة. شو هي هالعلامات المختلفة اللي ممكن ننتبه عليها إذا نحن عم بنحس إنه أولادنا أو حدا بنعرفه عم يستخدم أو عم يتعاطي مواد المدمنة؟ أول شيء نحن ممكن ننتبه عليه هو التغييرات اللي بنشوفها مظهرهم. ممكن ما يعودوا يهتموا بمظهرهم الخارجي، ممكن يصير عندهم علامات أو كدمات غير معتادة، ممكن يصير عندهم ريحة كحول بالفم أو ريحة سجاير أو أي شيء هن عم يستخدموه. عيونهم ممكن تصير حمراء أكتر، وممكن يصير عندهم هالات سود جوا عيونهم، وإذا كان عندهم هالشي من قبل ممكن تكون تصير أسوأ مع الوقت إذا هن عم بيستخدموا المواد المدمنة. كمان ممكن تشوفوا مشاكل صحية مثل الأرق، مثل نزيف الأنف المتكرر، خصوصا إذا هالشي منه طبيعي لإلهم، خسران أو اكتساب كتير من الوزن بطريقة كتير مفاجئة، التعرق الكثير خصوصا إذا هالشي ما كان طبيعي لإلهم من قبل، اتساع حدقة العين، هالشي كمان ممكن نشوفه بالناس اللي بتستخدم المواد المدمنة، مثل ما قلنا كدمات أو تحرقات ما لها تفسير. ممكن يكونوا مرهقين بشكل كتير كبير وكمان بدون أسباب، وكمان ممكن يصير عندهم تغيير بالنوم، ممكن ما يناموا لمدة طويلة من الوقت، أو بالعكس ممكن يناموا أكثر من قبل. كمان في علامات ممكن ننتبه لها بالمدرسة أو بشغلهم إذا هن بيشتغلوا. إذا دايما عم يتأخروا على المدرسة أو على الشغل، خصوصا إذا هالشي منه طبيعي لإلهم، إذا دايما عم بيغيبوا من المدرسة أو من الشغل، كمان مثل ما قلنا إذا هالشي منه طبيعي لإلهم وما في أي شيء سبب هالتأخير أو التغيب من المدرسة، لأن هاي الشيء ممكن يكون علامة لإلكم. فقدان الاهتمام بالرياضة أو الهوايات أو الأنشطة اللي هن بيعملوها بطريقة مستقرة، علاماتهم إذا بتنزل بطريقة مفاجئة وكمان مثل ما قلنا بدون سبب، هالشي ممكن تكون علامة. إذا خسروا وظيفتهم، إذا هن عندهم شغل، أو إذا المدرسين أو أصحابهم بالمدرسة بدأوا يشتكوا من تصرفاتهم بالمدرسة. كمان نحن ممكن نشوف تغيرات سلوكية. ممكن نشوف إنه هن ما عم بيقدروا يمشوا أو يتوازنوا مثل قبل، ممكن يختفوا لمدة طويلة من الوقت وأنتم ما بتعرفوا شو هن عم بيعملوا، ممكن يوعوا لوقت كتير من الوقت، وبعدين بيناموا لمدة كبيرة مشان يعوضوا فقدان النوم اللي هن خسروا من قبل. كمان ممكن نشوف تغييرات بالمزاج أو بالشخصية. هاي التغييرات ممكن تكون أصعب شيء لننتبه لها، لأنه هالعمر ممكن يصير عندهم هالشي كتير طبيعي، بس من الأحيان ممكن نحن نقول إنه هالعلامات ممكن بترجع لاستخدام المواد المدمنة، مثل إذا هن بيصيروا غضبانين أو غير متعاونين أكثر من قبل، إذا هن بيميلوا للخداع أو بيكونوا سريين أكثر من قبل، إذا هن ما عندهم القدرة ليركزوا مثل قبل، أو إذا هن كتير نشيطين بطريقة غير عادية، أو إذا بتشوفوا تقلبات بالمزاج بسرعة خلال اليوم. هلا خلينا نشوف شو هي الأماكن اللي أولادنا ممكن يخبوا المواد المدمنة عندهم بالغرف أو بالبيت. هنا ممكن يستخدموا أي مكان، بيت، سيارة، غرفتهم، ليخبوا هالأشياء منكم. نحن ما عم بنقول إنه أنتم لازم تروحوا وتفتشوا كل الأشياء موجود بالبيت، بس إذا عم تحسوا إنه في شيء غلط أو عم تلاحظوا واحدة من هالعلامات، لازم ننتبه على أماكن مختلفة ممكن يكون فيها شيء من هالمواد المدمنة. مثل ما عم نشوف الصور ممكن يخبوها ورا الكتب أو البايندرز، ممكن يخبوها بالسيارات أو بأي أماكن أو جوفات صغار ممكن تكون موجودة بالغرف أو بالسيارات. كمان ممكن يخبوها بثيابهم أو بالمواد اللي بيستخدموها كل يوم مثل ميناء المي أو شناتيهم أو ثيابهم كمان. هلا شو ممكن نعمل كأهل؟ نحن لازم ننتبه لتفاصيل حياتهم اليومية. نحن بنحكي عن هالشي كتير لما بنحكي عن مراقبة الأطفال. نحن قايلين من قبل إنه هالشي بيساعدنا لنعرف التفاصيل البسيطة اللي موجودة بحياة أولادنا اليومية، وما طريقة لنفوت بخصوصياتهم أو نمنعهم من إنه يكون عندهم خصوصيات. بالعكس هالشي ممكن يساعدنا ويساعدهم يعملوا القرارات المنيحة لهم. والأسبوع الجاي نحن رح نحكي عن 3 طرق مختلفة نتخلص من الأدوية بطريقة منيحة. أول وحدة منهم هي الديسبوز ركس. نحن رح نحكي عن هالشي الأسبوع الجاي. شكرا كتير لكم لأنكم شفتونا اليوم. هاي الانستغرام والفيسبوك تبعنا ممكن تشوفوا مواضيع مختلفة نحن عاملينهم من قبل، ممكن كمان تشوفونا الأسبوع الجاي بموضوع جديد. شكرا كتير لكم، بنشوفكم الأسبوع الجاي.